Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this radio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about this issue of red flag laws, and it's raging the length and breadth of the United States at the moment. Now, just to explain what it is, it means that and this is in the case of guns, but it could be applied to anything, that once anyone makes a complaint about you, that complaint is treated as fact, and the government, the force of the government, the full force of the government will act on that and come after you. Now, whether they detain you, arrest you, or confiscate your property, or all of the above, the issue here is that you're not permitted any due legal process. The state, which acts on this information that it has, claims to have, may not actually have it, but claims to have, it's able to act on that immediately, without, again, any due legal process. They don't have to prove it. They don't need to verify the truth of the matter or the accuracy of the matter or anything like that. It can be anyone can go. Someone doesn't like you. It could be a disgruntled former partner or former employee or former boss. Anybody that doesn't like you can go and say, "Hey, Billy Bob's a danger to the community." Okay, not a problem. And down goes a bunch of armed police and bails up Billy Bob, and he's got no due legal process there. They're not going to court. They're not having to go to a judge to get something signed. They're not having to say, "Here's the evidence that we've got." They've just got one claim that Billy Bob's somehow a danger. Now, Billy Bob, he's not completely without the ability to fight back, but it's going to be a very expensive and drawn-out legal process. The state, the government, has endless funds, and they can string you along for years if they want to. Whereas while the case is being heard, the restrictions upon you and the confiscated items or your detention can continue for a long time. Now, that's different for very cashed up people, very wealthy people, but they probably wouldn't be the targets of the authorities in this sort of situation, because they can fight back. So they'll probably pick people that can't really fight back, don't have the funds to do it. Sort of lower middle class white people, I think, will be particular targets. The odd one will have the resources to fight back, or may have got a law degree years previous or something like that, and they know how to navigate the legal system, but most people don't. So now, why are they red flag laws have actually been around for a long time, going back many hundreds of years, and they weren't called red flag laws then, but the state, if the state didn't like you or thought maybe you're up to no good, or potentially could be up to no good, or might have some sort of association with somebody they didn't like, they could arbitrarily arrest you on really anything they wanted to invent. And the burden of proof is reversed. So once the state comes at you with a red flag law, and I use that term generically now, it's your responsibility as the state would see it, because it completely reverses the burden of proof. Prove you didn't do it. Now, given the state doesn't have to produce evidence of a wrongdoing, how is it possible for you to fight back against the state by saying, "Well, where's your evidence?" and I'll disprove it? Because the state doesn't have to produce evidence. We got a tip off. We heard, somebody said, and it's almost like some high school, girly rumor whispering campaign or something like that. It's absurd that there isn't. Now, if they have evidence, that's a different matter. Then you can fight it, because the evidence has to be factual. They have to produce the evidence, and you can fight that. But they don't have to do that. Red flag laws, and going back on, say, the old treason laws in, for example, England, many hundreds of years ago, they could detain people. This is during the time of the kings and queens and whatnot. They could detain people and say, well, prove you didn't do it. And meanwhile, we'll keep you locked up. Of course, they couldn't prove it until they were let out. And then there couldn't be a court hearing. Now, if you had a very influential lawyer that would take your case, that was your only hope. Otherwise, you were fucked. But over the years, people began to realise, well, that's not really the way to go about it, because what it means is governments or kings and queens that don't like you can just come after you using the power of the state without having to prove that you did anything wrong, and they can detain you indefinitely, years, decades. So this is sort of the genesis, if you like, of the writ of habeas corpus, where if you're going to arrest somebody, you have to charge them and detain them. You have to charge them with a crime, and that crime has to be clearly written up. Say, well, these are the laws that you've broken, or that we allege you've broken, and then the person can mount a defence. But red flag laws bypass all that, and throughout history, red flag laws have been thrown out and over, especially in the West, where they're simply not legal. If you're going to go after somebody, you have to do it. The state shouldn't be doing it anyway. But if the state wants to go after somebody, whether it's to detain or confiscate, it doesn't really matter. They have to say, well, this is what you did. These are the laws you broke, and we'll take it to court, and a judge or a jury can decide, and you'll have the option of putting forward your evidence to rebut our evidence. But red flag laws bypass all that. Now, in the modern era, you can look at, say, World War II as a case in point. The ruling elites were terrified that, some of the Western countries, Britain, United States, was going to be invaded at any minute. And so there's a lot of arbitrary law there on the basis of invasion was imminent, and everyone was paranoid, and they would say, well, we're arresting you because you might be an enemy spy. A lot of the people arrested weren't. Sometimes they simply gone into a shop at the same time as a real spy had gone in. So the government decided to arrest anybody who was in the shop at that time on the basis that maybe they were somehow, working in cahoots with the real spy. So there's a lot of arbitrary arrest going on, but effectively it's the sort of the red flag concept. This person may have some association, but even then, the intent was actually to stop a real potential problem in the face of great upheaval and paranoia. That sort of same thing doesn't exist here. You could say it does from the globalists. The globalists really must think their project is in real danger of falling off the rails, and so they want to neutralise any of those people who may pose a potential threat to the globalist project. So the red flag stuff they're talking about now, they're using the school shootings and that sort of stuff as the springboard. And that's very classic sort of authoritarian regimes. We're only trying to protect children, little children, and are you against that? You fucking damn fascist Nazi Hitler. And that's really the play that they're making on this. It's disingenuous in the extreme and quite absurd. But red flag laws in sort of the modern sense have been around for a long time in areas of particularly gender relations. There's been masses of hysterical propaganda about how all women are in danger of being, beaten to death and murdered by their husbands. This is something that happened simultaneously all across the Western world. Very coordinated propaganda campaign, very coordinated, that all women are in danger. And they started introducing a lot of arbitrary laws during this time. But we're only doing it to protect women and children. Are you against that, you fucking Hitler? So they used this. Whenever the authoritarians say we're only doing this to protect women and children, or to protect black people or something like that, or protect lesbians or gays, it is absolute, utter, total fucking bullshit. That's all. As soon as they come out of the gate with that, it's bullshit. Now, what they did is they set up all across the Western world that any woman could go into any court and say, I want to take out an apprehended violence order, AVO as they call it, against Billy Bob. Now, the thing is, Shaniqua didn't have to prove anything, didn't have to bring any evidence, and could just say, I want an AVO against Billy Bob. Now, Billy Bob may not even know about it. He may be, blissfully unaware of it all. Maybe he doesn't even live it. So Shaniqua gives a false address. Billy Bob's at so-and-so address. She knows he's not there and hasn't been for a long time. But the court's only assuming, some courts don't even require this, by the way. So Shaniqua goes in with no evidence and just says, I want an AVO against Billy Bob. She gets it, and that's now a legal document. It's now legal. Billy Bob is under an AVO. If they even send him a letter, which is 50-50 chance, that's gone to the address, as Shaniqua said. It's not even his current address. Again, he may not have lived there for years. So now the court's done its job, as it's given the AVO to Shaniqua, sent the letter to Billy Bob. Now that's it. It's done. The court doesn't have to verify or prove what Shaniqua says, doesn't have to verify or prove that Billy Bob got the letter or even lives at that address. So the issue here is the burden of proof is about zero. No proof is required for the state to act. So the state can act without proof, without evidence, without any due legal process. Now, once the AVO is there, if Billy Bob comes within, for example, 200 meters of Shaniqua, but it turns out they only live 50 meters apart. He lives in the top floor of the apartment building. She lives on 2 floors down. So without Billy Bob even knowing, he's automatically in contravention of the AVO. Shaniqua knows this when she goes in. So then Shaniqua makes a signal, Billy Bob went past my front door. No, right, that's it, please. Billy Bob arrested. He's contravened the order. And so now he's got felony charges against him. Now, the whole process is kicked off without any evidence, any proof, anything at all. The initial red flag, but it's now escalated to felony. Then it's found that Billy Bob legally or owns a gun. Now, that's not permitted when you've got an AVO against you. You can't own a gun. But Billy Bob doesn't even know there's an AVO. But now he's looking at serious felony charges. He can go to prison for 5 years for this. Now, Billy Bob, gets a legal aid lawyer. He doesn't have any money. He gets a legal aid lawyer. He's got to move. He's got to move apartment, which is all sorts of disruption and carry on. And he gets a legal aid lawyer who happens to be an activist lesbian who thinks that all men are evil and the family unit's evil and he's an oppressor and Shaniqua's a victim. And so she does the most half-assed job she can possibly do in representing him. So the judge says, well, Billy Bob, I'm putting you in prison, man. You contravened that AVO twice. And But I never saw about the AVO. Well, the court says they sent you a letter. I'm satisfied you knew about it. I'm satisfied you knew, and you fucking damn oppressor. You've oppressed Shaniqua, Billy Bob, and I'm sending you down for that. So this shows how not only a red flag laws require zero evidence for the state to act. It's not another private citizen that's doing it. It's for the state to act. The minute that AVO gets filed, the state, the resources and power of the state is put into motion there. I mean, they've got plenty of time because they don't want to stop Antifa or Black Lives Matter people, so they can come after the lower middle class white guy for the AVO. But anyway, the AVO in like especially in divorce contests, it was used tactically and used widely. There's zero evidence to kick the process off, and then the burden of proof is reversed. And so any transgression made then automatically becomes a felony. So it's like a series of tripwires are automatically thrown into place. And Billy Bob has transgressed it and then ends up going to prison. There's very little sympathy for once Billy Bob's got an AVO against him, then effectively he becomes only a half citizen. And any legal rights he's allowed to have by the state, he should be damn lucky he's got any of them, because the AVO, in the view of the state, proves he's a bad guy. And he's probably a Nazi. Nazis don't deserve legal rights, so why should he get them? So there's this attitude around so the red flag laws have been used widely there. Also in other areas, if Shaniqua goes into Social Security and says I want money for welfare benefits for myself and so the kid, we're not going to give you any money, Shaniqua, until you tell us who the biological father was. So, I mean, Shaniqua thinks with the boyfriend she's had, they're all penniless guys on fucking benefits themselves. She's not getting any money out of them. So she goes, oh, well, it's Billy Bob. Billy Bob's got a stable employment. His pay isn't too bad. Bingo, Billy Bob it is. Now, straight away, the government now has the power, the state has the power to say, we're going to take all the money out of Billy Bob's bank account without his knowledge, without talking to him, without any proof or any evidence. So that's another red flag concept there. But why are we doing that? Why? It's for the children. We're doing it just for the children. It's an emergency. Shaniqua is on the street, it's subject to the evil men all around her. We have to act. There's no time. There's no time for justice. No time for evidence. No time for facts. We have to act now. We've got to take all that money out of Billy Bob's account and give it to Shaniqua. And anyone that disagrees with that is fucking Hitler. So that's the sort of the emergency type sort of situation they invoke to say, well, we have to do this. We don't have time for bullshit legal issues and facts and everything. That's crap. Only Hitler would have that. So they go down this path, and Billy Bob goes to his bank and finds it's empty. And there's nothing in it, not a penny. The banks happily hand it off to the government, and so Billy Bob suddenly can't make the payments on his car or his rent, his mortgage or something like that. So the banks then fine Billy Bob heavily for falling behind in his payments, even though they've just given his money away without even talking to him or without his permission or consent. So these red flags are used in a whole variety of instances, but they always invoke, well, it's protect children. Are you against that, you fucking Nazi? So, but as soon as you go away from facts and evidence, and the state relieves itself. Well, Shaniqua said so. She signed a form. She said it's, but Shaniqua lied. Shaniqua committed perjury. Yeah, well, that doesn't matter, so what? Yeah, who cares? So there's a number of things that the state needs to do. The red flag laws, assuming they're a good idea anyway, and you can kind of somewhat see the thinking behind it, then the burden of proof needs to be reasonably high. Okay, you say Billy Bob's a threat. How is he a threat? What evidence do you have that he's a threat? What did he do? What's your relationship with Billy Bob? I need you to sign a declaration here. And if the declaration is proved to be false, to whoever comes in and complains about Billy Bob, if the declaration is proved to be false, the state will prosecute you for perjury in a court of law. And these are very serious charges, and you could do time in prison for this. Oh, you don't want to go ahead with you don't want to make the complaint? No, well, why not? If Billy Bob's a threat, he's a threat. Why are you frightened to sign a form that says that you know something to be true? Well, why are you worried about the perjury thing? If what you say is true, then if you don't want to do it, that's fine. So there needs to be that burden of proof. Which isn't there at the moment, isn't there on AVOs or any of this, but there must be a burden of proof. Someone must make a declaration and back it up, and be prepared to go to court to back it up with evidence and facts. So that's that's a very key part of the process. Equally, if the police, the investigating police or investigating officers have to go and at least verify, if Jimmy Jack says that Billy Bob was at the diner at 9 o'clock, then, and Billy Bob can prove he wasn't at the diner, then the police can't act. They have to be able to prove with at least verify facts before they can act and confiscate Billy Bob's his guns or whatever it might be. So that level of proof needs to be there, that burden of proof. So the state must have a burden of proof to meet. They can't go on, I believe, they just can't go around accosting private citizens and confiscating their property or detaining them with a zero burden of proof to the state, and all the burden of proof rests with Billy Bob. I mean, that's absolutely absurd. What government anywhere in the West, what government anywhere would want that? Only authoritarian governments would want that. Only governments who want to implement a project that none of the population really wants would need that sort of power. Oh, wait. So the red flag laws fail to deliver. Now, what are they going to deliver for? Potentially deliver for say stopping shootings and so on. Well, the people that propose the red flag laws are disingenuous in the extreme. I mean, there are hundreds of people killing and shooting each other, particularly the blacks shooting each other in inner cities like Baltimore and Chicago, and no one seems to care. Why not? Those are people too that are shooting each other and gunning each other down on the main streets. People under the age of 18 getting shot and so on. But no one seems to care about that. I don't know why. Now, if they really cared about gun death and deaths caused by guns, then they would be vigorously addressing that, because that's where nearly all the shootings come from. But instead, they just want to concentrate on white people. And white people are seen as the big danger to the globalist project, because white people are the biggest losers from the globalist project. And really, it's politics. Now, you've got to wonder this rabid desire by the globalist controlled Democrats to take guns away from innocent American citizens who've committed no crime. They must be about to do something really, really bad to the American citizenry, given they seem to think that the guns have to be taken away first before, that seems to be like the next step in the process of the globalist project. We can't go on with this project until we do that, which one would assume must mean they're about to do something pretty terrible. Now, given their reckless disregard for the law and due legal process and, the rule of law, then we can only assume they're going to continue down that path and to further undermine all those institutions of law and due legal process that are such a critical and central, important part of the Western system of government and democracy. You've been with Tassus today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.